Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad. My co host will be joining me here in just 1 second. We have a very special guest rejoining us this evening. He was with us previously when we were only doing audio. So tonight with video, we're going to have on Dr. Mark Manera. He's going to be joining us tonight. And tonight is all about you guys and getting and improving your health. That is what Dr. Mark Manera is here to help advise us on, to give us some practical pointers and tips that can help us do better as far as being out here on this road and making sure that we are taking care of our fitness and making sure that we're eating properly, or to give us better advice on things that we could do to improve with our choices when it comes to food and things of that nature, and also exercise. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's show. I'm excited about it. I got a ton of questions myself because I'm definitely on my fitness journey. And as you've seen, if you caught the Instagram post from my co-host Chuck Snow, Chuck was actually out there getting it in as he was making the announcement about the podcast this evening. So Chuck is definitely staying on top of his thing, being a strapping young man. But if you could, ladies and gentlemen, I need for you guys to do us one big favor. I need for you to like, share, and subscribe. And if you know someone that can benefit from the information that we share with you tonight, please, by all means, share the podcast. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and welcome my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow, in. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great, Rico. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. We're back in the saddle again. We had a little bit of a hiatus. We were kind of had some different things going on. I'm moving, taking vacations, celebrating daughters' graduations, and all kind of stuff. And you're down and going down to see the big rat in Florida and getting them, letting them pickpocket you while you were down there.
Yeah, well, I was ready to. You know what? I was ready to make a sizable donation to DeSantis after that.
So I tell you,
I don't
so
want to get too political, but you know what? The only thing I will say about Disney World, it is spotless clean. I will say that. You couldn't find a piece of litter if you look for it. But my gosh, it was busy.
I tell you, I think it's a rite of passage. I think everybody, from the nostalgia of their own childhood and everything else, you hear about Disney. Everybody wants to get down to Disney. It's just like, and you get down there, you kind of you all ramped up because of the publicity that's already been built into your mind. And when you get there and actually see it, you're like, man, this is not really all. To me,
Well,
Universal was a little bit of a better value. It's just
yeah, that's what I hear. You know
everything
what?
on the
I took our son down there about 36 years ago or something, and then I was down there when they first opened. I was down there probably in 1975 or something, and I never saw lineups like this in my life. They were lined up an hour and a half to get in, which I thought was like to get on some of the rides. And I had our 5-year-old granddaughter with us, and that's why we went down. And the teacup ride wasn't too bad. Some of the other ones that,
Space
my
Mountain.
God,
Space.
for the adult rides, and even for had she been a little bit taller, we would still be standing in line probably.
Yeah. Well, without any further ado, I want to go ahead and welcome our guest, the guest of the hour, with us tonight. Dr. Mark Manera is joining us. Good
Hey,
evening.
Doc, great to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Excited for the conversation. Chuck, at least you got to stand there and wait an hour and a half in the happiest place on earth, right? No better,
Well, I didn't
right?
wait the hour and a half. Yeah, I guess it is. But Mark, I got to tell you, there was a real there was a lack of healthy food in that amusement park. I have to tell you, it was just for most, like, the only thing I ever saw there that wasn't unhealthy was water. Was being served, which in copious amounts, which I was really glad to see. Although it was expensive, $3.75 for a bottle of Dasani, and I did find turkey thighs, and my granddaughter wanted one, and I gladly bought her one, even though it was $15 because I figured it was better than candy floss and all the other stuff they sold.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a Six Flags. I've got plenty of childhood memories of going to Six Flags, and we always got the turkey legs as well. But what Disney World is known for, they have like one of their whole parks is known for like drinking around the world, right? They have like 20 different stops where you can get a specialized drink. So, when people are going to drink at those places, probably healthy food is not the first thing on most
Yes.
people's mind, but they should cater to more people because it matters, right?
Yeah, a good point. Getting back to our industry, which is a topic, I made a comment, and I just haven't had time to write them because I've been traveling. But I made a comment. Trucker Tools put something out there about truck stop food, and I think that and I'll go on the record saying it. I think for the most part, most of it's pretty deplorable now. They brought all these fast food companies in, and I don't think they're doing a great job in most cases serving the truckers' needs. And I know that most of the truckers I know, if they have a choice, they bring with food or they'll buy food at a grocery store, which is sometimes hard to do because not all grocery stores are truck friendly to get into.
Yeah, and I think I kind of look at this whole problem of like the food choices at truck stops. It's kind of like two layers to the issue, right? And you can look at, or like two angles you can look at. I think the first angle of like the bird's eye view of just like the industry as a whole, I completely agree in the fact that they could be stepping up and doing a better job of providing sit down restaurants, less processed food, non-fast food
Yeah.
options there. Completely agree. And I think there's a world over time where as the next generation comes in and there's more people who are health conscious, I think that there will be some of those quicker, healthier options coming. And I think there's a new restaurant called like, I think it's NAF. I think it's like a Mediterranean fast food-esque option that some
Right.
Love's truck stops are having. And there's some healthy options there that are,
Okay.
that are coming around. But what I always say from the other angle of the driver who comes in and says, I hear it all the time, right? That there's a couple of excuses I hear, coming from drivers' angles. And yeah, I use excuses lightly because they're definitely barriers that are in the way and they're real, right? But I think something that I always hear is, there's no healthy food options. I can't get healthy food anywhere. And, what I always tell drivers or I challenge drivers is to say, there's a healthier option
Yeah.
anywhere you go, right? At McDonald's, you can go with the, what is it? The, not supercharge me. What do they call it when you make it really big?
Supersize?
Yeah, you've got the supersized Big Mac option where with the large fries, the large Coke, and the Big Mac. Or you can go with a healthier option where maybe the healthier option is just, all right, hey, maybe I'm stuck with getting a burger. Maybe there's a grilled chicken option or there's a salad option that, and I know I'm not even going to get down the rabbit hole of how many drivers have told me about truck stop salads, but there's a healthier option out there. And
Healthier.
maybe,
Yeah, I totally agree. And I faced that myself about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I was on my way down to Florida. We stopped at a truck stop,
Yeah.
and I kid you not, okay, I swear on my kids, I combed that truck stop. Now, it was not a big truck stop, okay. It was a very small one, but it was owned by one of the large conglomerates. And the healthiest thing I could find in that truck stop, if I really looked hard, and I did, I found salted cashews.
Yeah.
And I will never eat another salted cashew again.
Well, Mark, if you don't mind, I want to kind of take us back just for a second before we jump any further into the discussion. If you don't mind, give us a little background on yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so my background is actually not in transportation. I came into this industry from a unique angle. I actually have a doctorate degree in physical therapy, and 3 or 4 years ago, before I started Supply Chain Fitness, I actually didn't know anyone in the trucking industry, and I was working in a physical therapy clinic. My home base is St. Louis, and so I was south of St. Louis in a rural a rural city and working at a physical therapy clinic, and a couple of truck drivers walked in, and I had the opportunity to work with them one-on-one personally and build a relationship with them, and really got to know them on a real personal level and became good friends with them. Loved hearing their stories. I loved learning about the lifestyle, and honestly, from those couple of experiences, saw what 20-30 years behind the wheel can do to someone if they don't make their health a priority, and kind of made me look a little bit deeper into the industry and get intrigued, and just was shocked at some of the stats that I saw just from an overall health standpoint on, the amount of obesity, even the amount of depression. I don't know if you know this, but truck drivers have 2 times higher rates of both obesity and depression compared to the average US
Absolutely.
worker. And the scarier one, and the scariest one I've seen to this date, is that the life expectancy of a truck driver is 16 years less than the average population.
I can believe
And
that.
Yeah.
I just deep down to my core don't believe anyone's career should define their health, especially define how many years gets cut off the back end of their life as well. And it's just really sad to me that trucking has impacted so many people's lives, especially in the fact that, what's the stat? 72 or 73% of all goods in the US is moved by a truck. And, our whole economy is so dependent on drivers. But when you look past the store shelves, it's the people who are, putting in those hours to get it, all that stuff there, are making so many sacrifices throughout their career with their family for their personal lives, but then getting 16 years cut off the back end.
That's
And
a
I
lot.
just, it's, yeah,
That's a long time to get cut off your life for just doing your job. And I'm
exactly,
of the belief that nobody should go to work to die. Nobody.
exactly. Yeah,
It's not what we. It's not. It's not normal. And we need truck drivers. And we all know Lindsay Trent and her group, Next Gen Trucking. I'm a member and I represent them. And I said to Lindsay one day, I said, unless we've really got to make things better. We can bring all these young people into the industry, but they won't stay if we don't make things more comfortable for them from all areas, including the whole experience, not just the food at truck stops, but it's the whole truck stop experience. Having to wait in a lineup on your time, on your hour, okay, to wait for a fuel island, and then wait and get filled up, and then by the time you do it all, it's a good hour.
yeah,
Okay, it's out of your working day to buy fuel, and that doesn't and that doesn't take other time you need or time that's wasted, and we just have to think of all the things. The parking is another issue, which of course that I think filters down to health as well, because you've got a guy that's already put in his whole shift, and now he's looking for a parking spot that was supposed to be there, but it's not, or the customer said, yeah, you'll be able to park when you get here, and there's no room, or the gate's locked. And now the guy's over on his hours and he's tired and he's got a delivery to make. And those things, I think, probably they affect your health.
A little bit of housekeeping real quick, gentlemen. I forgot to mention at the top of the show, ladies and gentlemen, if you got a question, if you would like to interact with us, all you have to do is type it in the chat, type it in the comments or whatever. We'll see it and we'll try to make sure that we highlight it and weave it into the show as we go. So I just wanted to make sure to let everyone know that you can participate with us as well. One more thing, circling back around to you, Mark. You talked about supply chain fitness. What is supply chain fitness? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and so where I was working in the PT clinic, looked deeper into the industry, and I was like, seeing those stats, I was like, how can we ignore this, right? And I looked at the industry and really saw a gap from something that was truly built for drivers and for this industry to fit into their day-to-day lifestyle from a health and fitness standpoint. And so I was like, I think I can fill that. And that's when I started Supply Chain Fitness. And what we do is, I think the easiest way to to put it is we partner with trucking companies, and we are a trucking specific or supply chain specific corporate wellness program or corporate health program. And so we really focus right now initially on the physical health of drivers. And we've got an app-based platform where we help drivers. We personalize an exercise and nutrition program for them. And then they can also interact and have a coach that holds them accountable through the app.
Okay. So how does is that just supplychainfitness.com? Is that the
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so supplychainfitness.com, or you can look up on any social media, Supply Chain Fitness. And so I really think the biggest thing that we're focused on is meeting each individual member where they're at and providing a personalized experience that fits them, not only from where they want to do everything at, if it's inside their truck and do some stretching routines, to helping them meal prep before they go out for the week, or if they're home every night, cooking healthier food at home. And we really personalize that because every single driver out there has a different starting point, and that's okay, right? There's a wide spectrum of fitness levels and different starting points, and also different goals that people have. And I think it's really important, especially with the time constraints and just the other barriers that being a truck driver and being in the trucking industry put on you, to have something that's tailored to your lifestyle and already does all of the hard stuff. So you just have to show up and, execute.
Right. So I just posted a link for everyone if you're interested in going over and checking out what they have to offer over at Supply Chain Fitness. Go over and please, by all means, go over and take a look at it. I got a couple of questions going down this path when we're talking about one, nutrition, two, being the actual exercise and everything like that. What is better? Because of course, we talked about 16 years being taken off the life of your average trucker. Because we all the studies and everything that's out there, the sedentary lifestyle of a trucker, of course, that's one of the most, I guess, one of the hardest things on the human body is that sedentary lifestyle, and getting out of the habit. Not necessarily people are lazy or anything like that, but after working a long day, dealing with traffic, dealing with everything else, and like you said, trucking is definitely a lonely profession.
Yeah.
It definitely plays games with your mental when you're out there on the road by yourself, away from family, so on and so forth. Things just kind of have a way of kind of just piling up on you. And sometimes when you're at the end of your shift, you're just so tired, you don't want to do anything else but climb into bed. But trying to be aware and conscious of all the things that we just talked about, the statistical data as far as taking years off your life and everything like that. I'm a bigger man myself. I'm working on trying to get down to a much more healthier weight. If someone wants to start out, beginning out, what would you recommend? Is it better to maybe focus on, or is it just better to incorporate all of it, cardio or resistance training? Which one may help someone see better or quicker results?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to kind of back up for a second,
Okay.
right? And I would say number one, because I think you mentioned something that's really important and something that I've heard so many drivers just feel automatically down and feel like they're playing from a losing spot, on the fact that your career and how you put food on your kids' tables and a roof over your family's head requires you to sit behind the wheel and drive for, 8 to potentially working up to 14 hours a day, right? And I know you're driving whatever. You cannot control that. And I don't think it's fair for you to use that mentally against yourself, to say, to use that as a being down on yourself and saying, nope, I'm screwed. I can't do it. I might as well just not do anything because I'm already, my profession or trucking's already making it a losing battle for me. And so I think it's really important for me to not come in and judge any drivers or anyone for that being a major part of their day, because that is what you do for a living, and you can't control that unless you are super serious about, all right, I need to change professions because this just doesn't work for me. But I don't think that's part of this conversation. I think the better part of the conversation is, how can we fit this in on the road to live a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
And so kind of going back to, like the type of exercise, I think it depends on where you're at. And if you're starting from ground zero, I think doing anything is better than nothing. And I think you have to figure out, number one, looking at your day-to-day life, or your week life, or just your schedule in general, where are areas that is realistic for you to do something? And so is that, is it realistic for you to find a gym and go lift weights and go to do resistance training on a consistent basis? For a lot of the people we work with, the answer is no. There's also a section of people that are just not gym people and never going to go to the gym, and that is okay as well.
Right.
I think the second part is, looking at it from a day-to-day perspective of, like you said, some people love doing something right before they go to bed or after they get done driving for the day. And that's where it can fit in. There's other people that if they wait till that time, they put the truck in park and they're already half asleep because they're just mentally drained.
Right.
And so you need to figure out, okay, well, does it make sense then for me to, hey, I know that I always have long wait periods at different facilities, so I'm going to do something when I'm waiting? Or do I need to wake up 15-30 minutes early and go get some movement in before I start my day? I think that's kind of the conversations I would be having internally, and trying to figure out logistics wise, versus saying, okay, is it better for me to resistance train or cardiovascular? Because I just think those are big, important details later on. That's like step 6, 7, 8. And a lot of people try to skip to that when they're actually on steps 1 or 2, or maybe step 0, and just need to get started.
Okay.
And so step one is really mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is you've got to just say, okay, you know what? I'm doing this job. I'm feeding my family. I'm paying my mortgage, but this job is hard on me, and I've got, I'm carrying a spare tire around, under my shirt, and I need to lose 40 pounds, and I need to get healthier. Or I'm not going to be walking my daughter down the aisle. That sort of thing. How can I do this? And next comes, I guess, everything else.
Yeah. And then the next thing would be, the next thing I would ask is, okay, so, I would ask yourself, like, there's kind of 2 areas of health from the physical health standpoint that you can look at: nutrition or exercise. If you are a driver and this is you're at step 0 or step 1, now that your mindset is, I would probably pick which one you are most motivated, or the one that you feel like is most realistic to start with. I wouldn't try to, make this huge 180 flip in your whole lifestyle and change everything tomorrow. I would start small and build up some small wins, and then start adding more things to your plate. So from an exercise standpoint, because we were just talking about that, maybe that is, hey, I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk every single day. I'm going to get out of my truck. I'm going to have some fresh air, and I'm going to just move, get some blood flowing and move for 10 minutes. Then maybe that turns into 15 minutes.
Yep.
Maybe you're getting into the zone of it, and now you want to go and get some resistance bands, because resistance bands are super lightweight and easy to store in your truck. And, every other day I'm going to walk, and then the other days I'm going to do some resistance band exercises. And then you get into the habit of it. And then all of a sudden that hard part of exercising now turns into, oh man, I'm looking forward to this because it's my mental relief. That's where a lot of people get. Now it's like, I get all of the stress of being behind the wheel gets thrown away when I'm out on my walk, because I can actually think clearly, or when I'm doing my exercises, because breathing a little bit heavy and getting some blood flowing clears my mind and makes me think straight. Right.
Right. That's one of the things that I've read as well, that it definitely, if you're getting in exercise and stuff like that, that helps tremendously when it comes to, we talked about depression and everything, but that's a way to help also relieve a little bit of depression. It can definitely assist in having a better overall thoughts of yourself.
Yeah. Well, and you know there's been a lot of research actually in the last couple of years on how long exercise sessions really like need to be, right?
Right.
So there's something called the Physical Activity Guidelines for a Healthy American, and they like put out like it's like all this scientific stuff on like you need to have I believe it's 3 days of full body resistance training, and then they want you to exercise for 150 minutes a week of moderate physical activity, like all that, it's really good goal setting to get to for you to like build up to that. But they've also, on the flip side, shown that there are positive health benefits of sessions of 5 minutes of exercise. So a 5 minute walk can get things going and can be the starting point for some people. And you can build on top of that over time as you start to get the rhythm, because it's just like a semi truck, right? The first 30 seconds of starting from nothing, it starts moving slow, but then once you get the momentum and the tires turning, things start speeding up much easier.
Right.
And that's why I would just say start, really focus on going from 0 to 1, and then 1 to 2, then 2 to 3, instead of just trying to go from 0 to 10 day one.
Like shifting gears. You don't
Exactly.
start in first and go into 10th or 13th or 18th. You got to go through the gears.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing. Yeah, years ago, I remember hearing this thing, and it's so true. Humans are, every decision we make is made on gaining pleasure and avoiding pain. And if we can find pleasure in working out, and of course, somebody that's never done it before and they go at it too hard, I would imagine after the first day, they're, oh, I'm not doing that stuff again. You used to see them when I used to go to those large gyms every year, right after New Year's, the place would fill up. And you would see these people come in, and they would be they'd get on the life cycle for about 2 minutes, pedaling as fast as they could, and then they'd go on the rowing machine. Then they'd be lifting weights. All this within about a 4-minute period. And you go, well, that guy won't be back. And sure enough, you never saw him again.
Yeah, well, and I think off of what you just said there, like the interesting and the double-edged sword of health is the fact that if you're winning, the point of the game of health is to continue winning for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And what winning means is defined person by person. But what I always tell people from a mindset on day one is, let's start something. Like if you are starting something, ask yourself, in 3 years, can you see yourself realistically continuously doing this? If the answer is no, then you're probably starting too much too soon, and you just need to bite off a little less and then build on that, right? And I think the other aspect that you brought up on like the pleasure versus pain is like, this is like a cool way that like on the pleasure side of things, maybe, for your 10-minute walk every day, like there's a podcast or there's an album that you love to listen to, or you're reading this ebook and this audiobook and you only listen to the audiobook when you're doing your stretches or when you're going on your walk or you're doing your exercises. And so there are ways that you can kind of build in that like pleasure. You're looking forward to that time, and it's not you trying to run a marathon and do wind sprints and you're huffing and puffing and like wobbling of muscle soreness the next day.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? That's great advice. And I got to tell you, from a personal experience, many, many years ago, that's actually 42 years ago, my business was in trouble. I got defrauded by a business partner and an accountant, and didn't realize it until it was almost too late. And I was overweight at the time. And I happened to be looking in the office, and this business partner had bought this tape, these tapes called The Art of Winning by a guy by the name of Dennis Waitley. And he was a psychologist for the astronauts and presidents and all these people. And I went out and I bought a Walkman. If you guys are old enough to remember,
Oh yeah.
some of our listeners may not. And I started running in construction boots, of all things, listening to Dennis Waitley. And then everybody said, you're going to get shin splints. And I said, no, I won't. And sure enough, I did. And then I bought a really good pair of Adidas, and I thought God had given me wings. But what I was doing was I would listen to Dennis Waitley every day, and between the run every day, and I had never run before in my life, and the tape, which really worked, just like you said. And then what I did, which seemed to help, was every day I would run a little bit further. And within about 6 weeks, I was up to 6 miles a day. And the weight just kind of fell off. And you know what? I figured out, listening to Dennis Waitley and on my own, how to maneuver through this whole turmoil. And I did. And it was the running, and it was the tape. It was a combination of everything. And I think that's great advice what you gave our listeners, to get that, to listen to, to that podcast or whatever you like, to motivate you, and do it during that time so you'll want to do it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd say, of the couple smart things I've done in business so far in my life, most of them have come when I'm out on a walk and just not trying to solve the problem from my computer, but getting out there, breathing some fresh air, like thinking through it all and letting the subconscious do its thing. And it comes to me, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more upstairs mentally that happens from getting outside and getting out of the truck and just going for a walk.
Well, sure. You know what? Our listeners are sitting there pounding pavement, watching out for cars cutting them off, and construction sites and cops and every other thing, making sure they get to the right exit for their turn off and everything else. And they got 100 things on their mind, and that's what they're doing. And I would imagine that's taking a toll on them as well, just being at that high level of a performance every day, that high level of a mental performance. It's got to take a toll on you.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the things that, kind of circling back around, we was talking a little bit about food earlier, food choices. What are some practical things that can help when it comes to food choices? Are there particular, we talked about just starting out, are there particular diets that you might recommend for somebody that's just starting out, or is it just being conscious? Because one of the biggest things, and I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Doc, is one of the biggest things that for myself, I started being more conscious in logging the food. Like I got an app and started logging, because I was really not aware. I thought I was doing pretty good with certain things. Like I'd grab some almonds. I'd grab a pack of almonds, which is supposed to be, which is healthy food, unsalted and all that stuff. Or but if you're not careful, I got pretty big.
Yeah, they add up, right? Yeah.
And one handful of almonds, okay, 2 handfuls. If you're driving 8, 9, 10 hours, and you got the big bag of almonds, just throwing back almonds, you could easily put on about 2,000 calories, and
oh yeah,
aware of it. So making the conscious connection to what it is that you're actually consuming, and what's actually in there, reading the labels. So all the things we talk about, just so reading food labels and being conscious of all that stuff, and logging food and logging everything that you eat. It's a little bit tedious, but with technology and smartphones and everything else, you can scan the barcodes and all that stuff, and it automatically populates all that stuff. It was really helpful for me, but it's just making that conscious connection to what I'm eating and the calories that were actually in that. What are some practical things that we could talk about as far as dieting, starting out, and things of that nature?
Yeah, well, and I think it's like, especially if someone hasn't done that ever before, of what you said, Rico, on like just tracking what they've ate for a typical day, or even doing it for a week. Like, I think it's a good activity just to try. Maybe it's not something you do forever, but just give it a shot, because like you said, all of a sudden you realize you're like, I didn't realize every time I get up or I go, I walk through the kitchen, I grab the bag of Doritos and eat a handful
Yes.
of it, right? And so, or every time I'm driving, I go, I've got something in the passenger seat that I'm just snacking on all day, right? And so I think there's some things that we just subconsciously don't realize, or that you'd be surprised add up. Like something, for example, that something example of like, there's a lot of drivers that we work with on like, how much sugar's in like the amount of coffee that they're drinking or the amount of soda they're drinking throughout the day. And it's just subconscious that they're just putting them down. Right. But
Mark, I'll tell you another one. You're talking about the coffee. Sugar's one thing, but another huge one that gets a lot of people is the creamer.
Oh yeah, the creamer. No, it was sugar in the creamer, right? There you go. Yeah, exactly. Completely agree.
Well, you know what? A lot of the creamers that that are on the market that are available in truck stops and restaurants, it's not even cream. It's that real whatever they call it, that artificial cream because it lasts for months, whatever it's called. But it's not really cream, and that's worse for you than actually drinking sweet cream.
Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah. I mean, so kind of going back to your initial question on like the diet side of things, right? I think it's really important to kind of take it back to the thing we were talking about earlier of the goal of health is to figure out a lifestyle that you can live for the rest of your life, because dropping 50 pounds in 6 months is great unless you put it back on in the next 6 months because you fall back to your habits. And so I think, I always say to people, there's good and bad about every single diet out there. When you talk about the diets of like, people saying keto or do this or do that. And I think in general, the best diet or lifestyle, nutritional lifestyle is the one that you can consistently do and that fits
That's
into your
probably
lifestyle,
a better word,
right?
a lifestyle change. That's
And so there's some people that do great on cutting out the carbs and eating, a more keto style. I don't know if I'd suggest never eating a carb in your life, because I think there's a lot of value to it. And it's actually one of the main sources of energy your body uses. And fruits and vegetables have a decent amount of carbs in it. But, I don't think anyone's getting fat off of bananas. Right. And so I think it just depends person by person. And I think you need to figure out what works best for you. But in general, what I typically do is I think there's principles that are pretty much true across any healthy diet. And especially as we get older, I think one of the big things that a lot of people overlook and they don't realize is they're not eating enough protein and lean protein. And I think especially as you get over the age of 50, 55, and then you start looking at people who are not taking care of their health and they're not eating very healthy, frailty and muscle strength and your ability on just longevity in general goes down quickly. Mother Nature is not fond of that. And one of the major things that you can do to slow it down or combat it and just keep pushing it back and not letting it affect you is, number one, exercising and doing some type of resistance training. And resistance training can be even body weight exercises because you're pushing your body weight, resistance, and then eating enough protein. And so there's this medical term that I won't bore you, but it's called sarcopenia. And it's basically the natural loss of muscle mass as you age. And it is the number one factor of people being put in nursing homes because they can't get up out of the chair or get off of the toilet on their own because they're not strong enough. And that even goes to some drivers who are not strong enough to get in and out of the truck on their own as they get older. And
one little hack that I use when we're talking about coffee. I'm trying to cut back on some of the coffee that I don't drink as much as I used to. But one little hack that I found, I have a great vanilla flavored whey protein that is good, and so I use that as my creamer base or whatever. I'll put the whey protein into the coffee to have coffee. And that works as my creamer, and it gives it a little bit of flavor, a little bit of sweetness, because it's not any sugar in the protein, but it has a little bit of flavor to it, and it helps. You got to get it. It's an acquired taste, I will say that, but it definitely it helps you get that protein in, because like
Yeah.
I said, with logging the food and I have like my macros. I don't want to bore anybody with that, but I got all that stuff
Yeah.
on my numbers on where I need to be on to try to meet the goals that I've set for myself, and it blew me away with the amount of protein that I'm supposed to be eating in a day, and trying to actually get close or hit that number. It is a real challenge. Uh,
Really?
it is a real challenge. I think my I'll pull it up here. Let's see. I think my protein numbers, because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But my for myself today, it's giving me 241 grams is
Yeah.
my protein goal target. That's a
Yeah.
lot, and I'll give you an idea. I'm sitting at 239. I'm not going to. I got close today, but I've had um, two 8-ounce sirloin steaks.
Well, and I was gonna say, what I was gonna say is like for the people who maybe are not like as educated on the nutrition side of things. So protein is basically your body's building blocks for muscle and other structures. And so you find protein in foods like steak,
Right,
chicken,
chicken.
meats. There's even like there's protein in like black beans, and there's a bunch of there's a bunch of foods that have protein in it. But one of the cool things about protein is number one, it helps build muscle, but it also helps you stay fuller for longer.
Right.
And it's not something that it's not a so your body can use it for an energy source, but it's like way down on the list on what your body burns to get fuel for your body. And so it's when you eat it, it's used to build strength, to keep your body recovering and all of this other stuff. And so if you overeat it, which it's difficult because
It's
you
really
fill up
difficult.
full, it's not like carbs or fats where you can eat a whole bag of potato chips, and if your body doesn't use it for fuel, it transfers it to fat and is
Right.
sitting on your love handles, right? And so I think protein is an awesome thing. And yeah, like you said, Rico, like steaks, hey, I'm coming over tonight and eating a steak at your house as well.
Mark, let me ask
Yeah.
something. What happens when you sit down and you eat way too much? Like because I've done it,
Yeah.
and I'm sure my buddy Rico's done it. You sit down and you eat that 2 or 3 pound steak. What happens to that extra? Some of the protein we burn off exercising and just day to day. What happens to the rest of that protein?
Yeah, again, what I'll say is I have a doctorate degree in physical therapy, not a doctorate degree in nutrition or, whatever medical thing talks about the breaking down of food. And so what I'll say is, you do poop out a lot of stuff that your body doesn't use, right? But I won't. I'll tell you, I'm not an expert in that field. But
Yeah.
what I will say from my experience and my knowledge base that I do have on the nutrition side of things is that it's going to be a lot harder for you to overeat on the protein side of things versus some of the other foods that are just, potato chips, carbs, even some fats side of things as well.
Right.
Yeah, that
pretty hard to
it's
overeat.
really it's difficult to overeat on the protein side. I've been, like I say, since I've been logging it.
Yeah.
I have definitely seen. I'm like, man, this is a game changer.
Yeah, and I'm sure now that you're trying to eat more protein at every meal, you're not snacking as much between meals because you're full, and you stay full until your next meal as well.
That's a great, that's a great point, because I personally, I've been on a keto type diet for about 4 years,
Nice.
and it's worked for me. And I'm not one. A lot of these people are real strict keto. The animal has to have eaten grass fed. Well, go find grass fed chicken or turkey or duck in the middle of the winter. Good luck. I don't know any ducks and chickens and turkeys that eat grass anyways. They all eat grain. But it's worked for me, and my weight is under control. But it's just it gives me that discipline. And the one thing I do find is I can't eat bad food, because if I do, I pay for it.
Yeah.
Like I feel awful. I remember my wife and I went to a rib fest about 3 years ago, and we decided we'd be really bad and we would eat some awful dessert, a deep fried dessert that had ice cream in it. I forget what they call them.
That sounds amazing,
And
actually. No, I'm
you
just
see them on all those elite shows, and we ate it, and we both thought we were going to die. Like we felt, and we were my wife and I were on a cruise, and normally I do not eat bread, and we're on this cruise. It's the last night. I drank some wine, not too much, but and there was this delicious bread in front of me. I thought I'll try a piece, and it was good.
Yeah.
So I had another piece. Then I had another piece. I had 3 rolls. I have to tell you, the next day, I felt like hell.
Yeah.
So I just don't, because I like to feel good.
Yeah, and what I'll say there is, I think, Chuck, you're a great example of someone who you can eat a keto diet and you've got all the energy in the world. I'll tell you my experience of I've tried I don't know if I've given full keto a shot, but I've definitely tried cutting back on a lot of the carbs that I'm eating, and I am just dead. And like my body for some reason responds better to, I eat a lot of carbs through fruits. I eat like my breakfast is very fruit heavy and it gives me a lot of energy throughout the day. And so I think that's a great example of just person by person, people respond.
We're all different.
We're all different. And there's, something that works great for you might not work great for me, and something that works great for me might not work for you.
People here ate my diet. Maybe he would lose 50 pounds. Maybe he would gain 100.
Yeah.
It just, depends on the person. Personally, what I do now is I added kiwis in every day.
There you go. I love that.
The doctor was telling me that at one point that my cholesterol was high, and I refused to take cholesterol medication because there's a whole scam to it, or theory to it. And I'm not going to bring that up on the show. But a friend of mine who was a pharmacist who ate worse than any human being I ever met in my life had no cholesterol issues, but he ate 2 kiwis a day.
All right.
And he didn't die from heart or cholesterol. It was something else that got him eventually. But so I had to ramp it up. I ate 6 kiwis and a black coffee for breakfast, and I've been doing that for a couple of years, and my cholesterol did disappear.
All right. Well, hopefully it didn't disappear. It just went down to normal levels. Yeah, I'm joking. I'm joking.
If it disappeared, I guess I'd be gone with it.
I always joke that we're getting into my favorite season of the year, which is watermelon season. I love fruit. I think it just tastes great. I eat it a lot of the times. I have a sweet tooth myself, so I can get into fruit, and it checks that box for me.
Right.
But yeah. So Rika, tell me where else on the nutrition side do you want to go down?
Well,
just
I got a question when it pertains to this. Maybe coming away from nutrition for a second, because sometimes one of the biggest things that in my journey, going to the doctor and actually getting your tests, getting your numbers run. See, like especially for us men, what if your test, hormonally we can have problems that that may be an issue, and I'm asking this part, advising me if you got something to shed some light on this point. Is that as being sedentary, how much with this profession, how much would that have an effect on us hormonally, whether it be from a male or a female perspective when it comes to our testosterone, things of that nature, things that would help us be able to build muscle and lose fat. How much of that do you got any insight on that?
I would say I'm not the expert for that one. I think that everyone should speak to their primary care physician, right, and get their get tests done. But what I will add to that is, what I'll say to this is, your DOT physical as a driver, it does not count as your going to your primary care doctor and going to the doctor.
Absolutely.
There are so many drivers out there who do not go get an annual physical, do not go and have conversations with their doctors. And I know there's some subconscious of you're scared what they're going to say, but the facts are that there's so many things that can be prevented from just going in and having a conversation. And these people are trained to see things that we are not trained as regular people. And the number, so many people have been saved from early detection or going and getting treatment and, changing course of something that would have gone a different direction if they wouldn't have done something about. And so I every time I talk to a driver is, hey, who's your primary care? Have you seen a primary care physician? Do you have a doctor you talk to on a regular basis? When was the last time you saw him or her? And just, I think it's so important. And I know your home time is precious and you don't have a lot of it. And so the last thing you want to do is sit in a waiting room at a doctor to go get it. But I'm telling you, for the sake of your kids, your family, and just your life in general, it is totally worth an afternoon or a couple of hours once or twice a year.
Mark, to back that up, I got to tell you guys a story. One of my childhood friends who lives a fairly clean life. He doesn't smoke. He's a light drinker. Watches what he's never been heavy since we were kids, and he's got a phobia about his teeth. He's always going to get his teeth cleaned every 3 months, and he brushes his teeth after every meal religiously. Because he just loves the feeling of a clean mouth. And he went to the dentist on one of these cleanings, and the dentist said, Wayne, I don't like this. And we said, what's wrong? He says, you get to the hospital immediately. The dentist could tell that his carotid artery was plugged by the color of his gums or on his tongue.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So he was in Toronto at the time because he lives pretty much at his cottage, and he went over to the local hospital. They operated on him immediately. They said you would have died had you not gone to the dentist.
Thank goodness for that. Oh my gosh, what a story.
But that backs up what you say, that how important going to the doctor is. And as we age, there's a greater chance of things happening. We're no different than a truck.
Yep.
You take a brand new, well, maybe it's different. The brand new trucks often do break down, but as a rule, a brand new truck coming off the line didn't break down. And as the truck gets older, first it needs brakes, and then it needs tires, and then it needs this, then it needs that, or tires and then brakes, depends. And then eventually you need to rebuild that engine at at 1 million miles, or depending on the truck. Well, people are the same thing, and you can expect you're going to have some issues. Maybe it's high blood pressure. Maybe it's men. I remember I had a great GP, and she said to me, if a man lives long enough, his prostate will kill him.
Yeah.
And you know what? If we get tested, and we get our PSA tested, and we get the exams, even if they find it, it's nothing. It will not shorten your life. But it's when you don't go. I know somebody did that, didn't go to the doctor. He had full-blown prostate cancer. It went throughout his whole body. And, the guy was like, I think he was 48 years old, and he passed away. And he said himself, this could have been prevented had I gone to the doctor.
Yeah, no, and that story kind of hits home with me because my family's got a history of prostate cancer, and so that's something as I get older is definitely going to be in the forefront of my mind on going and being proactive with it.
Yeah,
I apologize, gentlemen. We had the power that blinked out. I told you a bad storm was coming through, and the power blinked out, so I lost coverage there for just a second.
We didn't miss a beat. It's all good. Yeah.
Man, so that's a good deal. So yes, definitely go to the doctor. Everybody go see your doctor, go see your primary care physician. Make sure that you're going and having that, like I say, the DOT physical is not the be all end all. Of course, everybody wants to pass with flying colors and get the 2-year card for the DOT, but there could be some underlying issues that are masking themselves and you don't even know about it. So you definitely want to make sure that you do that. Go get your blood work, blood work, urine, and all that good stuff. Go have all those tests done and conducted to make sure that you have a clean bill of health. And I guess, Mark, I'm looking at the time before we get wrap up. Is there anything that you would like to send us off on? Is it you give us maybe some practical advice and some steps, and also after you do that, let everyone know where they can find you and what you have to offer.
Yeah, first off, thank you both for having me on. This is
Well,
a
thanks for coming
this
on.
is
This is really
yeah,
great.
this is a topic that needs to be talked about more in the trucking industry, and I think,
Yes, especially in the trucking
yeah,
industry. This number is scary, and it needs to. I don't know what political connections you have, but somebody like transportation head of transportation, Pete Buttigieg, he's got to hear this about because he's running that chip right now.
well, if anyone knows him, I'd love to have a conversation. I'm more my inbox is open. I can probably move my calendar around to fit Pete in. Maybe maybe a quick
You
15
should
minute.
actually reach out. Some of these people, in politics, they, if you reach out to them, first of all, they have to respond. In Canada, anyways, if you reach out to a politician, they have to respond.
All right.
I don't know if it's like that in America, but if it is, I would reach out to him and tell him this fact. Because he seems like a guy that may want to make some changes
Yeah,
somewhere.
he definitely is health conscious. I mean, he's in good shape himself, right? And so, yeah. So I think there's these are scary stats that we talked about, and I'm not saying them to discourage you. I'm saying them to educate you, to
Right.
say, hey, we can change those stats, and
Right.
today is a great opportunity to start making those changes. And so, like we just talked about, if you need to do some, get your mindset in the right spot and figure out and do some self discovery on what phase you are in your health. And if you are at phase 0, figure out what that next step is to get you to step 1, and just doing one thing in the right direction. Take that first step, because then the second step is a little bit easier than the third, then the fourth, and then all of a sudden you're moving, right, and you're getting going.
Yeah.
And those momentum is a big thing with health and just with anything in life. And so that is something I would just really try to encourage you to take this and run with it.
Yeah, and you know what? Exercising is a little easier, I would imagine, if you're not smoking cigarettes and you're 30 or 40 pounds lighter. It just makes it that much easier.
There we go.
and
Exactly.
and and to, and to put it in a little bit practical way for us truckers out there and everything. Look, we got destinations where we don't need the GPS or the map anymore. We know exactly how to get there. We know all the little shortcuts and everything else. But look at your health. Look at the journey for your health as when you very first started out. You don't know how you may not know how to get to Kansas City or St. Louis, Missouri. But if you have your map, if you got a GPS, you got something to guide you. Look at your health journey in that same way. Follow the instructions, and you may not get there in 2 hours, or you may not get there in 2 years, but it's a gradual journey, and each day just look at it as you're getting closer to the goal, and so
Yeah.
just look at it from that standpoint. Don't it's not Rome wasn't built in a day. Allow yourself some mercy and some grace. Allow yourself to be able to forgive yourself, because that's one of the we talked about mental health a little earlier as well. That's another huge component, and all of this stuff ties in,
Yep.
right along with one another. So
Yeah.
it's critically important that we try to bring a little bit of awareness and everything like that.
Well, I completely agree, Rico. I need to get you on the payroll. That was a great example. That was a great. I love that analogy. I love it. I completely agree. And that quote that you just said is something I say all the time. Rome wasn't built in one day, but the thing you didn't mention was I always say Rome wasn't built in one day, but they sure as hell were laying bricks every day. So small
Right.
things,
Exactly.
small changes and steps in the right direction will get you to Rome, right? And it might not happen
Yes.
overnight, but you just need to keep chipping away.
There's a great Japanese expression: the longest journey begins with a single footstep.
There we go. I love it. I love it. So,
Yeah.
And if anyone's out there listening, like I said, supplychainfitness.com, tell your company that you drive for, hey, we want to make changes to our health. Tell them about Supply Chain Fitness. Or if you are a fleet out there and you want to do something to mitigate risk from a health standpoint and help your drivers and help your bottom line, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, it saves on turnover if your drivers aren't dying.
So, and with that being said, Mark, he came on. He was gracious enough to share his time with us and everything like that. And like I said, using your GPS, use Mark for the
There you go.
GPS.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I took a brief look over at the website. They got some nice little things over there. And if you don't have anything and you want to try something out, hey, we got a guy with, like we said, we always try to bring tools to help put in your toolbox. We try to bring different tools on this podcast so that you got other things that you can put into your tool to make your life, your business, and everything like that better. That's our goal. That's our purpose here on this podcast. So hopefully you gain something from tonight. You gain something from Mark. And with that being said, he was gracious enough to come on and share some information with us. Go over and check him out. If nothing else, social media, Mark, anything on social media people can follow you on?
Supply Chain Fitness everywhere. Go give us a follow, give us a like, comment on our stuff, and we always like to build the community.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Please, by all means, go over and give Mark and Supply Chain Fitness a follow. Go share, go follow those guys. I'm going to go look them up on Facebook and everything else. We're definitely going to try to make sure that we stay involved. Mark, I appreciate you for taking the time out, being so gracious with your time, sharing so much information with us. It's definitely, like I say, definitely a topic that definitely needs to be discussed. And thank you for helping us have that discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. This was great.
Chuck?
Yeah, if anybody needs my help with anything, reach out to me, chucksnow280 at outlook.com. If you're having problems with your business or you just need some advice or you want to get set up with traffics, I still know a lot of people there. Glad to introduce you or anything else. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back her into a hole for another week.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we're here for your benefit. We try to bring practical stuff to help inform you. So if you got some topics or some things that you would like for us to discuss here on the podcast, by all means, drop us a note. Tell us some things that you would, give us a homework assignment, and we'll do our best to go out and try to find some experts to come on and have a discussion with us and break it down into more practical terms where we can have a more laid back discussion. So by all means, be social with us as well. Like, share, subscribe. If you found anything useful from tonight's show, share it with a friend. It helps us out. So make sure that you're doing those things by liking and sharing the podcast on all the different platforms. It helps get the show out to a broader audience. It helps us with the quote unquote algorithm, whatever that is. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you guys once again. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you took a little time to hang out with us here, whether you listen to us live or you're watching us on a recording. We are always eternally grateful for you doing so. With that being said, we want you guys to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and we'll talk at you same time, same place, God willing, next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch on the flip-flop. God bless.